Hi, everyone, and welcome to Under the Brown Rainbow, where South Asian queer stories come to life. I'm your host, Kashif Harrison. I'm a queer performer and presenter. Today's episode is one of my favorites because if you tell me that there is a queer Bollywood filmmaker that I will be talking to all things queer and brown, well, this episode is clearly for you and me. Onir is an award winning Indian filmmaker whose work has consistently pushed boundaries and sexuality, identity, and social justice. He's best known for the work My Brother Nikhil, which is one of my favorite movies and one of his first mainstream Hindi films to address AIDS and same sex love. And most recently, We Are Faheem and Karun, a tender love story set in Kashmir, becoming Kashmir's first LGBTQI film in Kashmiri language. So without any further ado, let's welcome Onir Under the Brown Rainbow. Before diving into this great conversation, I would like to let you know that you can subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. This podcast is proudly presented by Tricon Australia, Sydney-based social group for LGBTQIA plus folks of South Asian descent. Don't forget to follow us on socials under the Brown Rainbow or Tricon Australia. For now, let's dive in to this chat with Honor. Okay, so welcome on air. Can I just say, first of all, to everyone listening to us today, to everyone watching us today, this is once in a lifetime opportunity when you get to witness, I think, your how do I say that? Your what is that word that I'm looking for right
Don't
now?
don't use it.
I'll make you as bada as possible.
I'm quite short. You can't do it.
No, but I think that it's true that when you meet your people, the ones who actually motivate you or inspire you, say heroes, right? So it becomes a very surreal moment, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of queers out there, the brown queers listening to us, watching us, they are kind of hooked on to the fact that honor is here.
Thank you.
Now, on our first things first, can I just say that we love your work, and I think from the queer community, especially South Asian queer community, I would just like to say it off right up that thank you. You know, thank you for telling our stories with such pure soul, with such pure, I think, respect. There is a slight element of, when you watch these stories, you can actually watch these stories with your family and you still don't feel like, oh my God, I need to go somewhere else and watch these movies. Why is it so important for you to tell your stories your way?
I feel that, you know, when I was born and brought up in Bhutan, and when I grew up, till the class, till class 12, which is pretty late,
Mm,
I didn't even know the word gay. My education didn't have anything about me. My cinema didn't have anything about me. The stories I read, I was absent. And only when I came to Calcutta for my graduation, that's when I was doing comparative literature, and my professors, I was luckily in a very liberal space called Jadavpur University. And while doing comparative literature, we were learning Greek literature, Latin literature, and ancient Indian literature. And that's where the discussion about sexuality, gender started. And I remember, I think 86 or 87, 1986 or 87, long time back, uh, Hanif Qureshi came to our university with the film My Beautiful Laundry. And for the first time, I saw this film and I thought, this is me. There's something, you know. And by then I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. And I thought that I would want, I don't want my stories, our stories, to be invisible. I've spent most of my life either being a criminal in my country or being invisible or being represented in a way where it's a very heteronormative gaze, very often
mm,
mocked at. And I wanted to be visible. I wanted to be seen as we are, as we see ourselves, and not to please a certain gauge, and which is populist, which could probably earn me a lot more money, you know. Uh, but I think, unfortunately, that's my weakness. Money has not been the driving force.
Mm.
And yeah, I think that's I mean, the needs to be seen as we are. And yeah, and I feel that I'm doing it for myself. Us is an extension of that self, but primarily it's a very selfish motive. For having been invisible so long, I just don't, I'm not someone who's comfortable, and that's why also not just my films, as a filmmaker, I've been out and proud about my identity for the longest time.
And I think growing up, firstly, when I got introduced to your work, was, I belong from Pakistan. And I was in Pakistan when I watched My Brother Nikhil, in 2005-ish, around that time. And clearly it was not shown in a cinema. And I'll straight say it out loud, it was on a pirated cable TV
So
print.
I will just interrupt you. Okay. Uh, the first time I went to Pakistan was
Mm.
2012,
Yeah,
and I was really worried. One is who knows my work because my brother Nikhil didn't get released in Pakistan, and I was going there with I am for a
mm,
screening, but like a private kind of not private. It was a event, but closed event,
mm, mm.
where everybody could just walk in, and also Indian phones don't work in Pakistan, and the other way around, right?
Agree.
And you have all these misconceptions, whatever. And I reach Karachi, and I still remember it so many years ago, the journey from the airport to the hotel. And I've traveled the world, and you're constantly looking out and da da da. And this was just chatting with the people who came to welcome us, as if you knew them always. They're just
Mm.
friends. And my grinder was, by mistake, I had forgotten to delete it. Okay. And there was Wi-Fi in the hotel. And I remember being flooded with people just saying how much they loved my brother Nikhil and wanting to just meet. And for me, it was like, thanks to piracy. Thanks to piracy, because piracy transcends borders. And
Mm.
I think I'm thankful to that, because of which I could make such beautiful friends, and I felt that loved when I was there also as a filmmaker.
And that is true because in Pakistan, when we watched My Brother Nikhil, it was a pirated, but a good print, by the way. A good pirated master print. Well, this is what they used to call it. And I remember I was watching it and I was sobbing. I was sobbing so much. Beautiful story. And I think the way you've touched on such an important issue of HIV, right? How Nikhil contracts HIV and how his family supports, especially the sister, Juhi Chawla, the music, the emotions, I think from start to finish, that movie had so much soul that even when the credits roll up, you just can't stop sobbing. Um, Seeing a movie like this back in 2005 made me feel seen, even though I was across the border in Pakistan, closeted as hell. ठीक है किसी को नहीं बताना and that is the power of cinema, I think, right? Do you think that the power of cinema, especially for those closeted queers out there, no matter which country they are in, speaks volume? And what are your thoughts on that?
So again, like recently, about a week back, on 3rd of Jan, I
Mm,
had a screening of We Are Faheem and Karun in Srinagar.
yeah,
So this is the first time ever that a queer film has been screened in Kashmir.
yeah,
And it was again, I won't say closed event, because I didn't want to close it totally. It was un I mean, people had to register, but in a safe space. And I was expecting maximum 50 to 60 people,
Mm,
you know. And by the morning of the screening, there was nearly 85.
mm,
And when the screening started, there was 120 people. So we had to arrange for extra chairs and all that. And what really, really touched me, one, nobody walked out. I was really nervous that, oh God, when the kiss happens, someone is gonna, nobody walked out. And then I started getting messages from
mm,
people, some who were there in the screening and some who couldn't make it for the screening,
mm,
saying that you have no idea what this means for us as Kashmiri, queer, closet, that this is not the I there were for my moderating, I had this person called Dr. Ejaz Bun.
yeah.
He's one of the only, out professor who's written a book about transgender, and he couldn't speak after the screening. He was so overwhelmed because he felt that, you know, the people were speaking in their language, and it was a film which made them feel they exist, you
Mm,
know. And I feel that that is, I mean, what you were speaking about 2005, even, and that was the reason of making We Are Faheem and Karun, is
mm,
it's about two beautiful people, you know, who want to love, and they're not struggling for their own identities. They're very confident about who they are. You know, they're not confused about their identities, but they are made to be invisible because of one person, because of society, religion, what
mm,
he's made to believe, and the other because of the profession that he's in.
mm.
Apart from other various political reasons why they can't be together, but these are, I mean, this film has various other layers too.
Speaking of Faheem, we are Faheem and Karun, which is a beautiful movie set in the backdrop of Kashmir, right? The story comes from a very queer, beautiful story in Kashmir. Um, can you tell us that was it a real story that inspired you to create it?
Yeah.
And through censorship battle, how much was taken out, how much was in, to finally reaching the audiences? The process, if you can talk us through that journey of We Are Faheem and Karun.
So We Are Fahim and Karun is based on a real story. Originally, it was supposed to be a part of an anthology
Mm,
because I wanted We Are as a spiritual sequence to I Am, which was also about identities. And We Are is supposed to have four stories to do with four different aspects of queer love. One is a gay love story, one is a lesbian, one is a trans, and one is a bisexual. And they're set in the same four cities across India. And but when in India there's this rule that if you portray anyone from the army, you have to send it to the Ministry of Defense. So when I sent the script to the Ministry of Defense, they banned the script, and that's when I thought that I have to do it, and how to do it. And this is what I learned from Iranian cinema. I thought decide that okay, I will change the costume of the guy who's supposed to be an army guy, pretend he's a security guy, then theoretically I'm fine. I'm telling my story. The fact that the film was discussed in the parliament is a victory to me that at least we are being discussed. It's a
mm,
first step towards freedom. And of course, it was very difficult because all the studios and other finances which were supposed to back the film, everyone backed out. And it was almost like destiny. My accountant comes to me and says, "Oh, your life insurance has matured." So I was like, okay. My family was very upset, but I said, okay, this goes into the firm. Wasn't enough. All my savings go into the firm. Then I had to put in my savings, and then I took some loans, bank loans, and because for me, like the joy I get from doing something like this is much more than the stress,
mm,
much more than the fear of the risk and the repercussions. because I very strongly believe that I'm doing nothing wrong. I'm just telling a real story and a real story of love. Why should someone have so much? It's their problem that they have so much of problem with love. And I have to. I've been traveling the film festivals, and now this month is when the film goes to the CBFC board. That's a censor board in India. And yeah, I don't know what will happen. So I'm hoping that they can accept that the fact that it looks like you know, I said it's a security guard, but there are many other aspects of the films that does not fit in with the current narrative of the subcontinent, unfortunately.
Onir, what does it mean to you that you spoke about joy? You spoke about how when you create a movie, the money is the least of your worries, right? The more important thing is that it goes out, it connects with fellow queer people or to the world. What is your feeling right now that you personally and creatively created and directed Kashmiri first, like a Kashmiri
Yeah.
language first LGBTQI film? That is in itself a big thing. How do you feel about that? And how does that make you feel knowing that because you spoke about Irani cinema as well. So now you're
Yeah.
reaching other countries and other people in their language.
Yeah. So the thing is, for me, it's very strange for me. Like I always say that, being queer, one has always been othered, you know, and I feel world over conflicts are created, perpetuated, sustained by straight men mostly,
Mm,
you know, and I feel as queer and also women, if you look at mostly women, and that's why they make the best allies, that we are always looking for how to erase these boundaries of you and I and find the us, you know. And I feel this film is trying to do that. And at the same time, it's not that I just, went to Kashmir and oh my God, this looks beautiful. I have to shoot here.
mm,
It's not one of those films. I've been going to Kashmir for 20 years. Okay. I s- I speak the language to a certain extent because I've been learning. I live with families when I go there. You know, uh, all my Kashmiri friends call me half Kashmiri. And so the connect is there because, I was also very conscious of this whole thing of how sometimes people say that, oh, you're appropriating someone else's story. And because that was in my mind while making this film. And I thought that, of course, I can make this film in Hindi, right? Urdu.
mm,
It'll be more commercially viable. I can reach out to more people because a lot of people don't like reading subtitles. So I could cast known actors here if I did that. But I wanted to be authentic, you know, to shoot absolutely the entire film is shot in Kashmir in real locations.
mm,
Okay. All the Kashmiri characters are played by Kashmiri actors. They were all aware of the script. Okay, it's not that I was hiding anything from anyone. My crew knew the script. Okay. And I thought that with what talks about appropriation and other, where do we stop the boundaries?
mm,
Okay, I'm born and brought up in Bhutan, but I'm ethnically a Bengali. Okay, my parents were refugees from Bangladesh. So I'm not a Bhutanese. I'm not an Indian Bengali that way because my parents were from Bangladesh side. I went to Germany to study filmmaking. I was, of course, a brown Indian there. And then I come to Mumbai, where again, I'm not a Maharashtrian.
mm.
Okay. And forget it, I also make films about straight people. So am I appropriating their stories? So then at the end of it, what do I, you know, and
Mm.
I feel that I don't feel like I'm talking about someone else. When I'm talking about Faheem and Karun, they speak to me within me, and I can feel their angst, and I can feel uh, what the family is going through, and that was very conscious. A lot of people. There was one person in the screening in Srinagar. He said that being Muslim and queer is not easy, but you show in the film that how everyone is ultimately accepting. I said that I am out and proud queer, and
Mm,
I have always felt love and accepted by my students in Kashmir, by everybody I meet, and I feel also as a person, I come from like it's not that in India, also in the subcontinent, everyone accepts, people are still struggling.
yeah.
I said, but my story, when people call up and there are all these portals who want the struggle story, and they want a sad story of how when it came out, what happened. And when I tell them, but you know, I told my sister when I was 21. Well, anyway, I realized it late, and by that time I navigated and I was okay. And I told my sister, I think around when I was 21, and she says, "Oh, it's okay." That was it. When my brother got to know, he was working, he's a physicist, and he started sending all my articles to all his students saying that everyone needs to talk about it. So there was it. And my parents, they were in Kolkata, I was in Bombay. They called up and said, "We love you. And of all our children, we like to stay with you the most." And they lived with me till their last
Mm,
days, So I feel very happy that, and I feel that why should I not share that story?
mm,
Why do we have to always share stories where queer people are beaten up, are doing drugs and lonely and dying, uh, you know, really lonely deaths, and we're incapable of making friends? And I think that I have beautiful friends,
mm,
queer and straight, and I have a family which loves me,
mm,
and I want to share that. And I wanted to see that in this family, that, of course, they struggle with it, but they're not beating him up. They also care about him, you know, and it's not, and there is hope, and I want to tell stories of hope because I'm tired of, and I feel that's also a very heteronormative way of looking at us, that our lives are miserable. And we just, it's so difficult for us to find joy. And the other thing that you see with us is sex, you know. And I'm like, okay, one of my films, my last film was a film called Pinecone,
mm,
which was exploring queer desire. And it had sex, but for me, it was very important that during the sex scenes, you see the joy and love more than the, how will I say, lust aspect. It's not that I think it's unimportant, it's just that I feel that when you're only represented in a certain way, when you forget that sex is also an extension of joy and love, that how people connect, then it also becomes another kind of stereotyping of
mm.
our community that, oh, for queer community, it's just all about sex, you know.
Speaking of stereotyping, the West does it very best. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about VR Fahim and Karun and Heated Rivalry, which is obviously the show. And I want to really compare here because from VR Fahim, what I see is that Fahim and Karun's love story begins from looking at each other. He always stops by on the stop. He always gets stopped. Then the apple. There's so many certain small nudges of emotion that portray, oh my God, they're falling in love day by day. Right. And then comes the physical part, which is very later on in the movie, right? Whereas if you talk about Heated Rivalry, the Rachel Reed novel, which is now in a series, so that show shows that there's sex first for the physical lust part of it. And because of that, somehow their love story just vanishes in the end. The only time we see something beautiful, soulful is when there's a sub story in exactly the Kip story that comes into the series. What is this demographic you feel? Because whenever we see South Asian queer stories, they always start with love rather than lust, right? Whereas the West, which has most influence on a lot of communities, shows lust first and then shows love. What is this comparison?
So for me also that makes me remember one of the most beautiful recent films that I saw was Joyland. And I feel, I mean, of course, I know in Pakistan mostly uh, it was a censored version, but again, so beautiful, and I cried so much while watching the film. But and again, emotions, family, everything. I feel that the basic difference, and for me, it was very interesting. I was screening the film in frame line.
Mm.
Uh, and the film is somehow doing really well in the US. People are loving the film. And I remember during the Q&A, the audience says, it's so refreshing to a film where our lives is not just sex,
Yes.
you know. And there were so many people. And I was actually very surprised, honestly. I did think it would do that to anybody when I was screening in New Fest, crying. And I was like, why are they crying? I didn't think it was that. And then you realize that so many queer people have gone through this thing of loss of love.
Mm.
Love, I'm talking of, because of various, and also invisibility,
Mm.
of not being able to be visible where, and especially when I'm showing films outside India, and there is this small South Asian communities everywhere which come to watch the queer community.
Mm.
And there is this sense of having been invisible back home, and then you see this. And I think it touches the chord somewhere,
Mm.
and I actually sometimes feel very sad. I wish the South Asian community beyond just the queer community would come and watch these films,
Of
you know,
course.
and would come and uh, be a part. I don't know why it takes so much effort for a South Asian non-queer person to watch our stories, because you and I will go very easily and watch Dilwale or whatever,
Exactly.
anything, and celebrate,
Mm.
uh, uh, you know, uh, street love stories or stories which does not have queer character, because it's just a story. It's about people, lives. And
Mm.
I'm always wondering that why is it so difficult for them to watch our films? Are they so insecure about their identities, or are they are so afraid that they will start loving us more and seeing us and realizing that how terrible they are to be
Mm.
othering us still, across the world. I mean, it's exhausting that, if you see what's happening in the US, that it just does not end. The struggle to be equal, which should have been given to us by birth, is still a struggle in different levels across the world.
Mm. I feel, and this is what I think, that our stories are more stories of resilience. They're stories of depth. Sometimes the society in general gets a bit overwhelmed. Oh my God, they are heroes. Whereas we're not portraying ourselves as heroes. We're just doing us. You know what I mean? This is our normal lives. But we come across as, oh my God, so intimidated because they think that, oh my God, they are heroes. They're superpowers, non-touchable. Whereas we're just telling our stories. That is our day to day you know Someone was telling me that being someone needs to tell these straight people that how hard is it to be a gay person in 2026, because you have to first of all keep up to date with your personality. You have to be very fashionable because all the
Uh,
stereotypes, right? Have to be
yeah.
very fashionable. You need a good job. You need to be super rich. You need to party. You need to have a straight bestie and all of that. And I think that is, in a way, so wrong because this is not exactly who we are. We are real people with real stories. Um,
You just, when you say street bestie and all, I was thinking, okay, that's all so much a part of heated rivalry.
it is.
You know,
And
everything that you say, to be this gorgeous bodies and everything,
and that is, see, all I know is that our movies, like, we are Faheem and Karun. Faheem is the one who teaches Karun to love, to be himself, to be
But I'm
unapologetic.
so happy that you noticed it, because for me it was really important because there is power equation, right?
Mm,
At the same time, right from the word go, it's Fahim who takes all the initiatives. He's
mm.
the one who is, not so intimidated, whereas Fahim, I mean, Karun is always looking around and,
Scared.
yeah. So I'm
Um,
glad you noticed.
no, and I think that these stories actually always have someone who teaches a lesson to someone. Like in Joyland, Alina's character Biba teaches the kid to how to love, right? And this is exactly what Fahim does. Now, I'll switch this back to more about your book. Okay, so your memoir basically is called "I Am Onir and I Am Gay." Love the title. I love this. What made you write it, and what's
Mhm.
been the response so far?
So during the COVID phase, because this book came out in 2022, is this agent, he had approached me earlier, uh, and he was like, you need to write this book, and Penguin is very keen, da da da. And I was like, I don't feel like I'm not retired. I'm not that old. Okay, I'm old, but I'm not that old that I have to write a biography and all that. And I was very resisting, and he was constantly, Kanishka, constantly telling me that you should do it. You have to, it would mean so much to young people who are, who will read and get inspired because there's no one else in the industry in my space who even says I'm gay. They
Of
will
course,
do all
yes.
the other things but not say the word. And that's when my sister said that, why don't you just, do it? I'll co-write with you. And, and I thought that, okay, actually, my sister convinced me. And then when we started working on it, we were debating because I've always this thing that my entire identity is not about me being gay, you know. And I had done a Levi's ad which was I'm on air, I'm gay and more, so the and more was important always. There were times when I would put on my social media gay. At times I would take it out saying that Wha- And then over the years, I realized no, it's important for me to put it there because there are too many people who don't want to put it, you know. So
Mm,
I put it, and then we were discussing, and Penguin said that, Honor, do you realize that there is no one from your industry who says this, you know? And we know that it's not all about your identity, and the book is not just about that, but it is like in my book, it's not me just as a filmmaker. It's about me discovering and exploring and celebrating my sexuality
mm,
to an extent where I remember the women journalists love it. And one male journalist came up to me and said that, don't you think you've come across a little promiscuous? I said, just because my sex life is not as boring as yours does not make me promiscuous. Like, whatever. But I thought that, okay, if I talk about my life,
mm,
it was not easy. I thought be, I will talk about me as honestly as possible. Uh, Otherwise, what's the point? I don't want people to love or hate the me that's not real.
mm,
Then I would feel, how would I? feel good about if I know that, oh, they're all liking the fake me. I can't be lying to myself. And that's how, we came to the name finally. And I still remember that when the book got released, there would be people who would click photographs in cafes, in bookstores, in airports, saying that Onir, we feel seen, because it was out there everywhere.
Mm,
And it was like I was going to all the what you call literary festivals, and the third edition came out recently when I was in New York. I at a library we did kind of a book reading, and I was even there, and all the books were sold, and I was like, oh, nice. That feels good that even now there are people, and not just South Asians. There are, people who are, yeah, white Americans or, Hispanic and other from other communities who write to me about. Firstly, I'm surprised they've read the book, and then they, how it touched them, and uh, and yeah, I feel that yeah, it was because I mean there were people who would tell me that, oh, if I buy the book, at home will have a problem. Can you send me a soft copy? If people see. So I know that, I am happy that we did it, and also it was kind of good for me because I realized when, like when I was working with my sister, there was a part, I mean, though she knew about me,
mm,
you know, but there was a lot about me that I had not shared, you know, and she was like, I'm sorry, I never asked you all this,
beautiful.
so it was kind of I mean, bonding even more deeply, and my sister and brother realizing that I have always been a part of their love
Mm,
life, marriage, whatever, but they've not really asked me or known about my,
how was it?
and this journey brought us even closer together about them. Now my sister will make it a point that, okay, are you seeing this guy? Is it over? Why is it, whatever. So I
Mm,
feel that yes, also it's not just about the outside world, but self, you know,
mm,
uh, going through things, going through looking back at relationships, I was able to, even where there was hurt, I was able to think that, okay, if I was in a relationship for 4 years, should I cherish the 3.5 years of joy or the 6 months of, unhappiness or
mm.
whatever? And I realized, no, I think this writing process made me understand that no, I want to cherish those 3.5 years. I've learned to forgive myself. I've learned to forgive people I love. I've realized that all of us are gray and accept the grayness and
Mm.
love the grayness.
Oof, that is beautiful. So it goes without saying that you do believe that making art in 2026 can heal generational trauma within South Asian families.
Absolutely. And I feel that because cinema is powerful, that's
Mm,
why, be it the censorship that Joyland faces or my work faces, is because our stories connect to people. And there will be people who don't want our stories to reach to a wider audience because they feel that, oh my God, their structure will get shaken because their
mm,
structure is so imperfect, you know, is based on so many lies that when the truth about us, our stories, reach out to a wider audience, they will question that structure and that will crumble like it should.
I love that. I'm pretty sure that people who are watching us or listening to us will love hearing this out loud from your mouth. Now, one practical change in Indian cinema or the military or policy that would make space for more authentic queer stories, you think?
I feel one is just like I told you that with this film, the conversation have started in the parliament about, queerness still being not accepted in the army. And I feel that, that's a beginning. And I feel that I'm very confident that this can't be a permanent state. And I would also like and hope for me, my screening in Kashmir gave me so much hope. Though next day there were people who were, from some uh, clerics were putting up posts against the film. There were people who said that I should be beheaded and all that crap. And but I feel that people are talking, and that's how the change will, you know, should happen across, even across the borders slowly,
Mhm.
because I know that so many beautiful lives, so many people, across the borders, both sides, uh, have to live invisible lives. And I still remember, I was screening my film Pinecone in Chicago, and there was this gentleman from Pakistan, and he said that, oh, but in our religion, da da da. And, for me, it's very difficult to comment because I don't know the Quran and, details. But before I could reply, there was this lady in the audience, and she said, I'm from Pakistan, and I'm lesbian, and I'm a practicing Muslim. And if you look for love in the book, you'll find. And if you look for hate, you'll find. It depends on what you look for. And
Mm.
I thought that was so beautiful way of looking at and that's why if you notice this is for the first time in my film that I've portrayed religion. As in you see Fahim go to the masjid and pray
Mm.
and he's crying and he reaches out to God, you know, uh, like a dialogue. And similarly, Fahim is also praying to his, you know, uh, God to because I feel that though I'm an atheist,
Mm.
I believe that as long as I will go to a masjid or a temple or anywhere with respect, and I
Mm.
sometimes feel very good, in some of the spaces, not all, and I feel that if it's about inner peace, about being better, I don't care, as
Mm.
long as you don't bring in your hate. And I feel that both Fahim and Karun looks at religion in a way which seeks love.
Exactly. And queerness and religion can still prevail because
Absolutely.
lots of South Asian families they start questioning whether or not, they get triggered that if you're going to a temple or a church, like I myself, I'm a practicing Christian, and people ask me that, how are you Christian and gay? And I'm like, well, it's easy. God is love. Simple
Yeah.
as that.
Mm.
Now, so now these are last two questions before I do let you go on air. Now, first question is that how does one go about finding allies in Bollywood? I know that you found two beautiful allies who we love and adore. Actually, three, if I'm being very honest. And namely, these are icons, by the way. I'm talking about Juhi Chawla, right? She's done three epic movies with you. I'm talking about Manisha Koirala. I think she's just amazing. And Sanjay Suri, who I feel is such a beacon of hope when we see Bollywood actors, the way he worked with you in My Brother Nikhil and other movies. I feel, how does one go about to them and say, hey, listen, I'm going to make this queer story. I need you on board. And what is their reaction?
I feel that, again, for me, when I was trying to make my first film, before that, I was working as a song director uh, and editor for a film called Daman. And that's where that was the first time I went to a film set. Okay, I've never assisted anybody. I had gone there as an editor, but I ended up directing some scenes and the songs because the director trusted me more than her associates and, team. And I think Sanjay and Ravina were the cast there, and both of them noticed that some of the best scenes in the film were it ended up me directing those scenes, and also I kind could have, there was this. I'm not, I feel very important uh to know the craft that when you want something, if the actors, a quote unquote star actor says that, oh, but da da da, and if I don't believe in what the actor says, I will convince the person, or that person will convince me, because I believe that they also don't want something. And I think we would have all these discussions. And at one point, both of them, Ravina and Sanjay, because of course I wanted to be a director, but I was like, how do I do it? They were like, you have such beautiful ideas, why don't you write? And that's when I started writing. And actually, the first film I wrote was not My Brother Nikhil, was a film called Shab, okay, which I finally made in 2017
I think
after like 17 years.
yes.
But I wrote it in 2000, and it was considered to be too bold at that time, but it was with Ravina and Sanjay at that point. And then I kept writing scripts because Sanjay was like pushing me, and by then we really became good friends, the three of us. But Sanjay was really all the time instrumental, in trying to push me, saying that just write. And I kept writing. And then finally, he realized that everything that I was writing was too bold and it was exciting him and me that, okay, let's tell the stories which others are not telling. And at that point, I thought of My Brother Nikhil, you know, which was based on a documentary that I had edited about Dominic D'Souza. And when I wrote the script, I think this was the most magical thing that happened while writing. I wrote the script in 13 days, and I still remember I would sit in my tiny flat, which was like this room, and I would just sit, and it was my first desktop then, and I would, you know, write, and I could hear each of the character. I didn't write the way usually scripts are written, that you write a synopsis and then your longer story and then your bullet points and all that, and where is the arch, and whatever the first act, second act. I don't know all that. I just could hear them speak to me, and I would become each of the characters and feel how they would, and I would write those dialogues right in my first draft, and I would cry when I would write. I remember when I completed it and I gave it to Sanjay and his wife. I mean, both of them read it together, and both of them, when I met them the next day, they're like, we cried so much when reading the film.
Mm.
Let's do it, you know. And the idea is Sanjay had told me that why don't you write something that we can produce ourselves? Tired of going to people, you know. And so when I was writing it, I wrote it in the structure of a docudrama so that a lot of these parts could be shot as just this interviews where people were talking. So it also gave the sense of reality. And that's when Sanjay, when I was writing, I was thinking, who would I want to be the sister? And for some reason, the face of Juhi Chawla was omnipresent when I was writing, because I think she was one of the only persons who had this. I thought that I need a sister whose face has so much of love and joy that the audience will look at Nikhil through the point of view of that love, because it's my brother Nikhil and not my lover Nikhil. It was very sure that I was telling it from the sisters and that love, because it's one of those first stories,
Mm.
from the subcontinent. And then Sanjay, he had worked with Juhi in Jankar Beats, and he took me to meet Juhi. And I'm a terrible narrator. You know, I would just, write my script, but if you tell me to tell the story, I would like, in 5 minutes it was over. And she had kept 2 hours for me. And I gave her the script. I said, please read it. And in Bollywood people are usually used to narration. इसके
Mm.
बाद ऐसा हुआ उन्होंने ऐसा उठ के चला गया da 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 and I can't do all that, you know. Anyway, 3 days later she called me and she said, "Okay, you know, Honor, if I'd gone by your narration, I would have never done the film, but I read it and it's beautiful, and I want to tell you that I will do the film." And she said that I know you all are producing yourselves and just pay my spot boy. You don't need to. And during the process of making the film, by then anyway, Sanjay had become one of my and still is one of my closest friends. We have formed a company together and we make films together, anti-clock films, you know.
Mhm.
And Juhi, I remember she was staying in Taj, and all of us in staying in some small hotel. And you know, after the first 3 days, she says, "Oh, you know, the food here is very expensive. Why don't, when I'm not here in the set, why don't you just send me the dabbas from the set? The dabba food is quite good." The 7th day, she said, "I get bored when I'm not shooting. Can I come and assist you, and do things?" So we just became, and I think that when you don't treat people like, for me, I always treat my actors as with respect and love, but as my actor, not
Mm.
as this star I'm negotiating. Oh my God, how? And she made it easy for me because she came to me the first day and said that, Onir, this is my 77th film. This is your first film, but you have to tell me what to do.
Ah,
So before every scene, I would just sit with her, explain to her the graph before, after, bring her to that space. And I'm so grateful that to have worked with someone like her that gay. And I remember three of us would be me, Sanjay, Juhi would be at times in the, you know, uh, makeup room, reading out and crying while reading out. And the makeup person is, अभी भी इतना रोगे सब makeup खराब हो रहा है. And then Julie like, anyway, I don't want makeup because most of the film was very like real.
mm.
So I think that bond stayed and that, and she realized that she was doing films which, I mean, she's remembered for, all her Bazigar and Yes Boss and all those films, but she's also remembered for My Brother Nikhil. And it's a friendship that, today also I know that if I have a script and if I go to Juhi, even before reading, she'll say yes. Yeah.
I still think that it gives me goosebumps when I hear, Le Chale by Sunidhi Chauhan. Everything about that movie was amazing. On air, you are amazing, and can I just say that I think the queer South Asian community owes so much love and respect to your team, you, Juhi,
Thank you.
Sanjay, for all of the work that you have created before we are Faheem and Karun. And I think that's why it brings us to We Are Faheem and Karun, because this is a story that has been told so many times through so many different variations. And now we have another one, but in a Kashmiri language. How beautiful is that? My last question is that what advice would you give to our young South Asian queer filmmakers who are trying to tell their stories as well in 2026 and beyond?
I feel that, again, South Asian is such a wide spectrum. There are South Asians in South Asia, and there is a huge South Asian diaspora community. And I feel that, you know, it's very different situations. Like, suppose as queer to tell stories in Pakistan or Bangladesh is much more difficult than in India. Not that it's very much more easier here either, because despite being the world's largest filmmaking industry, we hardly have, not even 1% of our films talk about our stories, and that's a shame. And I feel that I keep telling to, because these days I do a lot of filmmaking workshops, especially in Kashmir, I've been doing. And the idea is you don't need all the fancy gears. All you need is a original, authentic story, a story that touches you. Don't try to be like someone else. Find the story that touches you, and you can make your phone with your, film with your iPhone, and Pinecone, which has gone to over 35 film festivals, was shot on an iPhone. And I've just got it censored and it'll release this year. So I feel that if you have a story, it does not matter, and you can explore possibilities, but search for the stories, and we need to tell our stories and stop thinking of what is palatable with the heteronormative audience. Let them now take those steps of coming into our world. I mean, we should all be tired of seeking validation. We don't need that. You
Agree.
know, let's tell our stories the way it touches us,
Yes.
you
That
know.
is
And I'm sure it can touch anybody as long as they have the courage to step into our world, because there's no reason why it can't, touch them. So I feel that that's so, so important to seek and tell our stories. Even when I was shooting in Australia for the film by Melbourne, I was seeking a story that is of the diaspora, you know, of how being away from home also, you know, how do you navigate cultures, being accepted or not accepted back home, how it also affects one's life, though one is thousands of kilometers away.
mm, mm. I think that is so so beautiful, and I think you're such a blessing to the South Asian queer community, Onir. There you go. I said it. Ab bahut ho gaya. My I think my dream collaboration of you and Saim Sadek telling stories side by side.
I just love, and I just, I wish I could meet him, because like when Joyland was about to release in India, I was really going all out. Honestly, I was like, it should have been in the, you know, final five. It's one of really, really beautiful film, I feel. And I hope someday we
Mm,
can work together on something which is South Asian diaspora, so that we are both out of our countries and yet tell our stories of love. And I feel that as queer South Asians, when I go outside my country, I
mm,
feel we all just feel we are the same. We connect and we're as different as I am with my brother or sister. We're all different human beings, but there is such a deep connect,
mm.
which unfortunately we don't seek when we are back in our homelands. And I always think that also it's so funny. Like I discovered cinema in Calcutta, which is called the City of Joy, and one of my favorite Pakistani films is Joyland. It's like, wow. I was like, suddenly like, okay, Joyland, City of Joy. It's
It is, and I think that now, I think even from Pakistan, a lot of storytellers are now saying stories. A lot of allies are coming forward. So where you mentioned Juhi Chawla, I would mention Sabah Kamar or Sarmad Khusat. These are actors and filmmakers who want to tell these stories and in a
this
yes.
series that you had with Fuad Khan and Sabah. What was that? That was
Oh my
so
God,
beautiful. Uh,
Mr. and Mrs. Shamim.
no, the
Which one?
one which was taken off YouTube
Yes,
after
that is exactly
release.
one. So Mr. and Mrs. Shamim.
No,
This is
this was some.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah. So
difficult
Nomane
name.
Jaz, and I think they were he's queer and she marries him and then she goes through struggles,
No,
no?
no, no, no,
Oh,
no.
okay.
This is the series which is all about, like, it goes very surreal, and there are dead people coming back, and with
Ooh,
Fuad
interesting.
Khan. You haven't
Oh,
seen it?
oh, oh, that one. Oh my God, yes. I even forgot the name of it.
It's a
Uh,
difficult name. That's why I
it is a
can't.
difficult name. Let
Yeah.
me actually Google.
But I was again so surprised to see such a sensitive, and it's not
Yeah.
only about queerness. And what I love is it's also about women. How
Mm,
it, and queerness and women identity is so interwoven in this subcontinent of ours.
yes.
And I feel that, yeah, it's just also, I don't know if you've noticed, but my co-writer for We Are Faheem and Karun is this wonderful. filmmaker, writer from Pakistan called
Oh,
Fazia Mirza. Okay.
love. So there you go. So somewhere you are working with Pakistanis, and I love hearing that.
Absolutely. Of course, I mean, for me, right from Tere Bin by Atif Aslam,
Hmm.
I always seek, and I feel that, some of my closest friends are there, and unfortunately, we're not able to meet over the recent years. And I just hope for the day when, you
I-
know, when one does not have to go to Dubai to meet once. That's why if you remember, there's a dialogue in We Are Faheem and Karun,
yes,
when they're like flirting across the border. They're like, आप तो रहते हो पाकिस्तान पे हम हिंदुस्तान पे कैसे मिले and he says Dubai and I'm like, oh, that's the reality of our
it is. I think we just
border.
need a massive rainbow that goes from in India to Pakistan, and that's it.
Yeah,
Otter, thank you so much for giving us your precious time. I know that you're a busy man, but you gave us time. We cannot wait for us all queer families to come out and watch We Are Fahim, which is coming to Sydney next month. And I'm thinking that this episode is going to drop during that time only. So,
and yeah, so I would really I'm looking forward because this is for the first time I'm coming for the Sidri Mardi Gras
mm,
and the filming stream there, and I hope that I want to see my community there, the theater. I want others also, but also uh, you know the South Asian community to come there, watch the film, and you know also I just wanted to tell somewhere if you put it in the podcast that we are starting My Melbourne too,
mm,
and I'm looking forward to South Asian diaspora stories to make my next story
oh,
for My Melbourne, and just send us stories, and people who want to work in as also crew can send us. And I would be so happy if there are people, especially from Pakistan, Bangladesh. Like in my
mm,
previous one, there were Orko was from Bangladesh, and I would love it that if we can at least bridge these gaps
somehow
outside,
overseas. Yeah, true, true.
and I would love more South Asians to, because I feel that this film is a space which is talking about diversity, not just in terms of the stories, but how we can work with a diverse set of people.
Mm. And I agree on that 100%. And I'm sure that all the queer, South Asian queers listening to us will get back to you. And we are going to come out with our families to watch VR Fame. Honestly, I'm going to
Yes.
take my mom. She's been
Oh,
she's been
that's
obsessed with the gays ever since I came out last, I think 2 years back. And now yeah, I'm just going to bring her. It's time. It's about
lovely.
time, Onir.
Yeah. No, I feel that also this film is very accessible.
Mm, very.
Like what you mentioned, that everyone can watch the film.
Of course. And I think that it's important that now we start bringing our families out to these places. I think, and I would definitely add before leaving that queer cinema or queer Bollywood movies were one of the things that I started showing my family to kind of show them that this is also there and I might be part of it. So I think it's so important, to
Yeah.
get that narrative going. Onir, blessed to have you on podcast. Lovely, lovely to talk to you. And I'm glad that we got to do this under the brown rainbow.
Thank you, Kashif. And yeah, finally I'm qualified to be under the brown name.
You were always there. I think you
Thank you.
you were the first
Really.
ones who created that rainbow.